Hi there, I'm Emily Muehlstein with the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council. This is a public hearing video designed to inform you and gather your comments on Coral Amendment 9, which considers making management areas in the Gulf to protect deep water coral habitats. So coral reefs in general are some of the most diverse ecosystems in the world. Deep sea corals specifically are very long-lived, and they provide very important habitat for many of our fish and invertebrates in the Gulf of Mexico. There are two main federal partners responsible for coral protections in the Gulf of Mexico. The first one is us, the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council, and we are responsible for the conservation and management of coral resources in the federal waters of the Gulf. The second is NOAA through the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, and they conserve and manage special areas of the marine environment to protect areas that are special because of their beauty, their biodiversity, their historical connection, or their economic productivity. In the Gulf, the Office of National Marine Sanctuary has two marine protected areas, Flower Garden Banks, which is off the coast of Texas, and also the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. Currently, the Gulf Council is considering establishing some coral protections in the Gulf to conserve essential fish habitat and support sustainable fisheries for our future. It's been a long road to get where we're at. Initially, a group of scientists identified 47 areas in the Gulf that might be in need of protection. The Council then consulted with a number of its different advisory panels, and the 47 areas were narrowed down to 15 priority areas that you see in the document. There was also 8 additional areas recommended to be considered for habitat area of particular concern status with no fishing regulations. The Gulf Council's main mechanism for protecting corals is through either the designation or the redefinition of a habitat area of particular concern. Now that's reserved for areas that are either ecologically important, sensitive to human harm, located in a stressed area, or considered rare. Now this designation allows the Council to regulate fishing activity within the area, and it also mandates that other activities that may affect the area have to go through a NOAA consultation. So we'll jump right into the actions, starting with modifications to the Pulley Ridge Habitat Area of Particular Concern boundary. So Pulley Ridge was established in 2005. There's 2 areas within Pulley Ridge. Pulley Ridge North has no fishing regulations, and that's the larger box in this map. And then the second box, the smaller box at the bottom of the map, is Pulley Ridge South, and the fishing regulations are that there is no fishing with bottom longline, bottom trawl, buoy gear, pot, or trap, and bottom anchoring is also prohibited. So the Council is considering changing the area that is managed with regulations within Pulley Ridge and in possibly adding a new area with modified regulations. Now this map not only shows Pulley Ridge North and South, but you'll notice that the colorful overlay is actually the vessel monitoring data from our commercial fleet, and so you can see how much fishing pressure occurs in this area. So alternative 1 is the no action alternative, and that would not modify the existing Pulley Ridge boundaries or fishing regulations. Alternative 2 would expand the fishing regulations within Pulley Ridge South to the entire Pulley Ridge North habitat area of particular concern. Alternative 3 would modify Pulley Ridge South to include a new portion called Pulley Ridge South Portion A and extend the same regulations throughout. Or alternative 4, which is the Council's current preferred alternative, which would add a new area called Pulley Ridge South Portion A and create separate regulations. Now in that area, the following regulations would apply. There would be a prohibition on fishing with bottom, trawl, buoy gear, pot or trap, or bottom anchoring. We'll move north a little bit for Action 2, which considers new areas for habitat area of particular concern status in the southeastern Gulf. The Council is considering designating some new areas along the West Florida shelf, and all of them are between 100 and 500 fathoms deep. All of the areas have confirmed presence of deep water stony and black corals. And as you can see from the map overlay that shows the commercial fishing effort and the shrimping effort, these areas are not frequently visited by vessels with bottom tending gear. Alternative 1 is the no action alternative, and that would not establish any new habitat area of particular concern in the southeastern Gulf. Alternative 2 would establish a new area named Longmount. Alternative 3 would establish a new area named Many Mounds. And Alternative 4 would establish a new area named North Reed. Alternative 5, which is the Council's current preferred alternative, is a hybrid of alternatives 2 through 4, and it would establish a new habitat area of particular concern named the West Florida Wall. Now the Council has two sub-options here. Sub-option A would be not to establish fishing regulations in any new habitat area of particular concern, or option B, which is the current preferred alternative, would prohibit bottom tending gear in that area. Action 3 brings us up to the northeastern Gulf and considers new places for habitat area of particular concern status. So the Council is considering designating 6 new areas in the northeastern Gulf. The region is characterized by hard bottom made of fossil reefs and pinnacles with patch reef. Banded gear fishermen and shrimpers regularly fish in this region, as you can see from the map overlay. And there is one area that is currently used for royal red shrimp fishing. So alternative 1, as always, is the no action alternative. Alternative 2, which is currently a preferred alternative, would establish a new habitat area of particular concern named Alabama Alps Reef. Now the sub-options here are as follows. Option A, establish the area without fishing regulations. Option B, which is the current preferred option, would prohibit bottom tending gear, including anchoring by fishing vessels. Or option C, which would also prohibit bottom tending gear, but would not prohibit bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. Alternative 3 is also a preferred alternative, and that would establish a habitat area of particular concern named L&W Pinnacles and Scamp Reef. Now we have the same sub-options here. Option A would not establish fishing regulations. Option B would prohibit bottom tending gear and bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. That's the current preferred by the Council. And option C would simply prohibit bottom tending gear. Alternative 4 is another preferred of the Council, and that would establish a new habitat area of particular concern called Mississippi Canyon 118. There are 2 sub-options here. The first one would not establish fishing regulations. The second one, option B, which is the current preferred, would prohibit bottom tending gear and bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. Alternative 5, which is another preferred of the Council, would establish a new habitat area of particular concern named Rough Tongue Reef. Now our sub-options are the same. The sub-option A would not establish fishing regulations. Sub-option B would prohibit bottom tending gear and bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. That's the current preferred by the Council. And then option C would prohibit bottom tending gear but not have a prohibition on bottom anchoring. Alternative 6 is another Council preferred, and that would establish a new habitat area of particular concern named Viosca Knoll 826. Our 2 sub-options are as follows. Option A would not establish new fishing regulations. Option B would prohibit bottom tending gear, including bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. Alternative 7 is another preferred, and that would establish a new habitat area of particular concern named Viosca Knoll 826-906. Option A would not establish any fishing regulations. Option B would prohibit bottom tending gear and anchoring by fishing vessels. And option C here is a little bit different. That's the current preferred of the Council, and it would prohibit bottom tending gear, including anchoring by fishing vessels, but it would provide an exemption to the bottom tending gear for fishermen that possess a royal red shrimp endorsement and are fishing for royal red shrimp with royal red shrimping gear. So we'll move a little bit west for Action 4 and consider new areas for habitat area of particular concern status in the northwestern Gulf. So the Council is considering 3 areas in this region. All 3 areas are very deep. The region has hard bottom salt domes and also some shallow banks. And there is very little shrimping and almost no fishing with bottom tending gear, as you can see from this map. So alternative 1 is the no action alternative. Alternative 2 is a council current preferred, and that would establish a new area named AT047. Alternative 3 is a preferred, and that would establish a new area named AT357. And alternative 4 is also a current preferred, and it would establish a new area named Green Canyon 852. Now there are two sub-options here for each of the alternatives. The first option would not establish fishing regulations. The second option, which is option B, is the council's preferred option for all three of the preferred alternatives, and that would prohibit bottom tending gear and bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. Action 5 considers new areas for habitat area of particular concern status in the southwestern Gulf, so all the way to the west. The council is considering two new areas here. Both under consideration contain reefs that are 2.5 to 5 million years old, and fishing with bottom gear here is relatively low. Alternative 1 is the no action alternative. Alternative 2 is a current preferred, and that would establish a new area named Hart Bank. Alternative 3 is also a preferred alternative, and that would establish a new area named the Southern Bank. We have two options here. Option A, which is the current preferred for both areas, would not establish fishing regulations, or option B would prohibit bottom tending gear, including bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. Option 6 brings us to considering new habitat areas of particular concern status without fishing regulations. So there are 8 areas being considered. All of the areas are in depths that are unlikely to be fished with bottom tending gear at all, and the areas are all unique and contain coral communities that are very rare. Alternative 1 is the no action alternative. Alternative 2, which is a current preferred, would establish a new area named South Reed. Alternative 3, which is a preferred, would establish a new area named Garden Banks 229. Alternative 4, which is a preferred, would establish a new area named Garden Banks 535. Alternative 5, which is also preferred, would establish a new area named Green Canyon 104 and 272. Alternative 6, which is a preferred, would establish a new area named Green Canyon 234. Alternative 7, which is a preferred, would establish a new area named Green Canyon 354. And alternative 8 would establish a new area named Mississippi Canyon 751, and that is also a council preferred. And finally, moving on to action 7, which considers prohibiting dredge fishing on all existing habitat areas of particular concern that have fishing regulations in place. So currently our habitat areas of particular concern do not prohibit dredge fishing, but do prohibit bottom tending gear. Bottom tending gear is defined as bottom long line, bottom trawl, buoy gear, dredge fishing, pot or trap, and bottom anchoring by fishing vessels. The West and East Flower Garden Banks habitat area of particular concern, the Florida Middle Grounds habitat area of particular concern, and the Tortugas Marine Reserve all have prohibitions on bottom tending gear within their boundaries. Pulley Ridge, Stetson Bank, McGrail Bank, are only prohibit bottom long line, bottom trawl, and buoy gear, potter trap, and bottom anchoring. There is no explicit prohibition on dredge fishing. Alternative 1 is the no action alternative, and that would leave things as they are. Or alternative 2, which is the current preferred, would prohibit dredge fishing in all of the existing habitat areas of particular concern that have fishing regulations. The council would like to hear your comments. We've created this video and we're hosting public hearings because we want to hear your comments on the proposed areas for habitat area of particular concern designation. You can send us your thoughts either by following this link or simply by emailing us at gulfcouncil@gulfcouncil.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and send us your thoughts.